Hello and welcome to a new edition of True Audio Files. So, the remastering is on the docket for today, talking about, when they remaster an album, are they actually improving the sound quality of the album? And that's a tough one to answer, and just like just about any subject on sound quality, it's really a personal preference thing, and there's no set answer to that question. Also, just because not every remaster is good, not every remaster is bad. I will say, in my personal opinion, when it's typically the major label doing the remastering, usually what they're doing, well, usually what they're doing is trying to sell more albums, but they're also, when it's a remaster, they're also typically trying to kind of modernize the sound of the recording and make it as loud as the other music that's on the streaming services now. And when I mean as loud, what I mean is they'll dynamically compress the music more, and sometimes they'll chop off some of the peaks to make it sound louder. Now, in turn, it's very rare that a album will sound better after something like that is done, unfortunately. But I have found that a vast majority of the remasters that are out there, that's what's being done. Especially since, maybe the early 2000s on, when it's been a remaster, most of the time it is done that way. There are some rare exceptions, but my experience has been that it's just not the case. Now, some of the rare exceptions are Steven Wilson has been kind of remastering a lot of his older work with Porcupine Tree. I'm not sure if he's done any of his own solo work. I don't think he has. But a lot of the stuff that he did as Porcupine Tree, he has remastered it so it's not as loud as it was when it came out, probably in the 2000s and maybe late 90s as well, but I think mainly the late 2000s or early 2000s. So that is one of the exceptions. The other exception that is definitely an exception to the rule is typically when an audiophile label gets to do a reissue of an album, like a Mobile Fidelity or Acoustic Sound / Analog Productions or Intervention Records or Impex Records, or there's a bunch of other ones out there. You can name them. There's just a ton of them, but those are probably the most well known. And I would say that all the ones I'm aware of, at least that are done through those types of labels, are generally going to be at least as dynamic, anyways, not dynamically compressed, or more dynamically compressed than the original mastering of it is. And in many cases, not all, I prefer the sound of the remaster. Another example, although I guess I'm not sure how technically if it's really a remaster. I mean, in theory, you can call it that, but I'm talking about all the Blue Note reissues that have come out over the past couple years. The Tone Poets, the Classic Vinyl Series, the 80th Anniversary Editions. All of those are done, on vinyl, are cut from the original analog tapes by Kevin Gray. And, he definitely puts a different spin on them in comparison to the originals. Probably tend to be, they may potentially be more dynamic, and they're basically cut and mastered for the audiophile in mind, and for people who have good enough turntables to where they don't have to worry about the record needle jumping when it goes over a really dynamic piece. So in turn, he has more flexibility than they tended to have on the, maybe 60s, early 70s pressings and things. So they do tend to be maybe a little more dynamic, maybe have a little bit more bass. I have found that they tend to be a little more neutral, whether that's good or bad. I guess it's a personal preference. I mean, I think that some of the earlier pressings or first pressings of a lot of the Blue Notes I've I've done two, I believe, and I have some videos where I compare, but on one of them anyways. I've found that the originals maybe have a little bit more pop to them, and that might be a little more compression, and it might be a little bit of how they're EQing them too. But anyways, I would say when it comes to audiophile reissues, and I actually put those Blue Note reissues that I just mentioned in that audiophile category, I would say a lot of the audiophile reissues that are remastered, which they, in technicality, they all are remastered, I suppose, to a certain extent. I believe that most of those will sound as good or better. And then I would say almost all of them will sound as good or better, with some rare exceptions, than the original mastering of the album. So major label stuff, it's pretty much a crapshoot, but I would say most of the time I've found anyways that they don't sound as good. One exception that I did find also that besides the Steven Wilson ones that I mentioned is Prince's Sign of the Times, where Bernie Grundman did a remastering of the album, and it definitely sounded better than the original album. And the original album sounded pretty good already, but he did a really great job on that one. So, I don't know, I guess that's my take. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Do you find that you prefer the original mastering compared to the remasterings that are out there? Or do you like the remasters better? You know, like I said, it really all boils down to personal preferences and what you like for sound quality. So maybe you like the more dynamically compressed sound. I mean, it definitely is going to sound better when you're listening at really low volumes, because you're going to be able to hear all the details better at lower volumes. But if you're the type of person like me who kind of likes to crank up his music to listen to it and experience it, the more dynamically compressed the music is, it tends to not give you that openness, and it tends to kind of crush the sound stage a little bit, and makes it sound less realistic. So that's my take. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Please make some comments below. I'd love to talk to you about it. And if you like the video, please hit the like button. Do the share, do the subscribe button. Hit the alert bell to let you know when my new videos come out. Check out my social media pages that are listed down below. These are the new releases that I bought for this week. It was kind of a metal week with Iron Maiden and Ginger. So I might even talk in some detail about this on my social media pages, so stay on the lookout for that if you want to. But that is everything I have for this week. I hope you have a great weekend. If you're watching this when it first comes out, have a great Labor Day weekend, and I will catch you later. Thanks a lot.